Well, that was live. If anyone tuned in to what was happening there, thank you so much for bearing with us. This is live. I like to bring it live. It's very raw, except when there's an echo and then I can't concentrate. So I wanted to redo this to make sure that we're bringing you the information properly. So good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Kayla Unfiltered, the Housing Call-In Show. Let's kick off another episode of real conversations, real stories, and real housing issues that impact landlords, tenants, and taxpayers across Ontario. Tonight's show is an important one. We're focusing on education, prevention, the real-world impact of Ontario's rental housing system. In part one, I'm joined by Jacob Ellsworth and Max Labelle from the Cooperators, one of their trusted sponsors, to break down insurance and risk protection, acknowledge the housing providers and tenants' needs before something goes wrong. We're talking landlords insurance, loss of rental income, liability risk, vacancy, renovations, fires, subletting, tenant insurance. What else? When the crisis
That's
hits,
enough.
What we have to do to protect ourselves. At 7:30, we have a little shift. We have a housing provider, Sadif. She's joining us to share her experience navigating the Residential and Tenancy Act and the Landlord and Tenant Board, not to attack a tenant, but to explain how the delays and the abuse and the lack of enforcement can lead to devastating financial outcomes, reducing housing supply, and the loss of confidence in the system. This conversation about policy and accountability and why balance, functionality, legislation matters to everyone in housing. And I'll be taking questions live and sharing our advocacy insights throughout the show. A sincere thank you to who continues to tune in, share this channel, and support this platform. And a special thank you to our sponsors who helped me make this advocacy work possible. Front Lobby, Landlord Credit Bureau, Canadian Tenant Inspection Services, Coffee and Mortgages, Intrust Commercial Real Estate, the Cooperators, Ray Johnson and Associate, KW Property Management, and Renovation Solutions. Remember, all this content that we're sharing and discussing is intended for general purposes only and for advocacy purposes only. Nothing said here today should be taken as legal advice. For guidance or particular landlord and tenant matters, please consult with a quality legal professional. So let's get into it. This is Kayla Unfiltered. So you got to love that little end of it. It's like, we did not tell you to do anything.
I like that. I was like, oh my God, okay, no claim, we're good.
Yeah,
that's right.
With a legal representation, please. So, fellas, thank you so much for joining me, especially on the Thursday. Yeah. And we're obviously, people want to talk about insurance, and we get that a lot, even when we talk about something completely different. First and foremost, I want to thank you for being a sponsor. You guys are helping me create this podcast area, making it more professional. Of course, the permit is still pending with the city just to, do a podcast wall.
Right.
I'm just joking, guys. The city is.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We're waiting 2 months.
Yeah. So we're being able to kind of bring it in a more professional way, bringing you the people that I speak to in this industry. I talk to a lot of people. Some people even check in on me and they're like, hey, I just want to know you got your message. Like, just want to see how you're doing. And I'm sorry, I'm advocating. We're talking to some really amazing people. And sometimes that social button does get delayed. So that's why I got to take some breaks sometimes. But guys,
absolutely.
We got some questions that I was able to talk to a few landlords about. I have them wrote down. I can't remember all insurance stuff. This is something, and I'm going to admit, it's my husband's job. He knows like what he's buying. He gets it. But when something does happen, I'm going to be like, did you not ask these questions? And he's going to go, no, I didn't know.
Right.
So
that's common. It's super common.
I know. And it's always been like that. And I'm getting some questions from individuals on LinkedIn. Their child was living in government housing. There was like mold that was happening. And their tenant insurance denied them because they said it was neglect from the landlord. So we'll get in that later. Don't want you guys thinking about that part now, but I want to get the bigger picture. I want to start with the basics. So when someone hears like a landlord insurance, what does that actually cover? Liability, the building itself, the contents, or the loss of rental income?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So when it comes down to that, so for us, there's like homeowners and there's residential. So for this landlord that would come to us, it would be more of like a residential policy that we would have. And like you just said, it covers all of that. It covers your liability. It's going to cover the building. It's going to cover your own personal property as well inside the unit that you actually own yourself. It's going to cover you for rental loss. So, you know, God forbid this happens, place burns down. Who's paying the mortgage? Where's that money coming from, right? So with us specifically, up to 10% of your dwelling is covered for rental. So if your, house is insured for $500,000, well, 50,000 in rental income exists. That that's going to come in no matter what. And at the end of the day, to be honest with you, it's always going to be a claims process as well. So you got to have a good claims experience as well with your insurance company at the end of the day to make sure that everything is right. Because like you just said with the mold, it's neglect, right? Was there neglect? So a lot of that comes into play. But yeah, liability, home, rental income, personal property. And one big piece I will say, just to add this, right, is people don't know, but pools and stuff like that has its own liability that you need to make sure that you tell your insurance company exists. Because if there's no swimming pool liability and something happens, just saying, I can promise you no insurance company is going to pay out if you didn't have that coverage.
What about a trampoline?
Ooh,
trampoline, just 2 feet on the ground when you're bouncing, just, keep your balance.
So like, what
injury prevention.
A trampoline like in their backyard and it's a shared accommodations, like does that pose a risk to the landlord?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like it's not something that we would ask. Like, do you have a trampoline in your backyard? Because it's a big liability issue. At the end of the day, everything comes down. It really does come down to a claim situation because everything gets investigated. Like, what happened? Was it, a trampoline given by the landlord for them to use, and then someone slipped or jumped off and fell and broke an arm? Right? There's different portions of the policy that can come in. Like one of them is like medical expenses. Ours is $25,000 that you can help. I don't claim fault, but I'll make sure that I can make everything right and indemnify you is what they like to say in the insurance terms. So it really depends where it comes into policy.
We're coming to no trampoline.
Yeah, don't give anyone
probably
trampoline.
not a good idea. Yeah.
Now, ideally, what would you suggest as a liability price tag? Like some people say 2 million. Like what do you think we should be having as our policy as we get into getting this type of insurance?
Next.
Well, typically we always advise at least $1 million on typical liability. Is that what your experience has been? I mean, it depends.
Oh, I say someone's telling me 2.
And some will be 2. Jacob, what do you find when you're doing Jacob does most of the policies with home insurance. So
yeah, we're gonna get you at the end. I got a good question for you.
Yeah, that's okay. I got you.
Yeah, no, that is a great question. Personally, for us, because I'll be honest, like we do deal with a lot of landlords, a lot of buildings, apartment buildings, houses, duplexes, triplexes, whatever you want to call it. I would start at 2 million. Yeah. You go anywhere, anyone's going to quote you 2 million. If anyone's quoting you 1 million, I'm going to be honest, you're getting underserviced. You should start with 2 million no matter what. And the more it climbs up, I would go bigger. So like an average home, let's just say a single family dwelling, duplex, triplex, whatever it is, 2 million should be more than suffice. But when we're talking like apartment buildings, 6 rentals and up, I would start at 5 million because now you have multiple people and there's more things that could happen, right? And your buildings would be more expensive. I would go the higher liability personally. I would start at 2, and the more units you have in that single dwelling that you have, I'd go up to 5.
Sounds good. Okay, next question. The biggest what are you seeing the biggest mistake you see when landlords think their personal insurance will cover in their rental property? So what's the biggest mistake you see when landlords think their personal home insurance will cover a rental property?
Well, your personal home insurance, your personal home insurance isn't going to respond to a rental property at all. It's going to be, that's why you have insurance for each individual dwelling, and they're all insured differently. Like for us, like if you own your own residential house and you come to us, it's a homeowners. You come to us as a landlord with someone renting it. Well, now it's going to be residential. They're 2 different policies.
Yeah, I know a couple of people are like, I got personal. I'm like, no, you got to go down the rental property as well. So that's why I kind of threw that one in there. Now, we talked about the loss of income. The loss of income is one of the most misunderstood coverages. When does it apply and when does it not? Because we talked about obviously a fire and then they're going to replace the income. What if we'd had a tenant that, did a lot of damage to the rental property? They obviously got evicted, and now the unit's going to be sitting down for a while until you actually do the renovations. Would your insurance company cover such a thing?
Right. That's a great question. A lot of people think, hey, I got insurance, I'm covered. No matter what happens, I'm covered. One thing I will say is, there's a fire, anything that's an actual insured peril, 100% we're going to respond. We're going to be there. We're going to fix it. We're going to indemnify you. You're good to go. Now, if you had one of those tenants that came in and said, oh, they treated me so poorly, my tap has been, leaking for the past 3 months, and they decide to punch holes in the wall before they leave, I'm sorry, but the insurance isn't going to cover that one. Now, if I was giving you, nice advice on the side, I would say I would probably take them to court personally to cover that. But yeah, anything that's done from a tenant doing something, let's just say silly, unfortunately, insurance will not respond to that because it's not insured.
What about the picture that you see here now with this whole ice castle that happened in Quebec, where the tenant turned off the heat accidentally? Would that be like the landlord has to go through his insurance, or would we be working like tenant insurance into this situation?
Right. That's a good question. So that right there for us specifically, that would be like a water claim, which is an insured peril. At the end of the day, your insurance is always going to respond if there is specifically an insured peril. In this case, it's water damage. So we're gonna insure you. We're gonna take care of you. We're gonna make sure you're indemnified. But at the end of the day, just know that the insurance company has the right to also subrogate against a tenant. So just because, we're going to take care of you, the tenant needs to be careful, because just know the insurance company is going to come back after you as well for, their money. And that's why you need to have tenant insurance, because when you do get pulled into those lawsuits from an insurance company because you do something so silly like that, because we have to pay for it, now their tenant policy is going to come into play, because that's what your liability covers you for when you get sued.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that too.
Yeah,
absolutely. A lot of landlords don't always ask about tenant insurance, right? A lot of landlords don't always require it. Yeah. But you have to understand, landlord insurance protects the landlord, but tenant insurance will protect the tenant and the landlord, right? And I think that's an important thing, and that's why we always recommend ensuring that your tenants get tenant insurance, right? Because it protects everybody.
So
right? I mean, of course, you're going to get landlord.
Like, are we still looking like a $2 million policy or a $1 million policy for tenant insurance? Like, what kind of two?
Yeah.
Two for the tenants.
Always. You should have 2 million. At the end of the day, you should have 2 million on anything. And the price difference between $1 million and 2 million is so marginally small. It's not even thing to even look at.
Yeah, because I know that some of our tenants would be like, I'm like, here, it's on the standard lease where we require you to have tenant insurance, asking the tenant to keep updating you on your new tenant insurance, making sure that it's updated, and asking the tenant to provide that information to you. We're starting to see why it's there, because this alleviates a lot of the pressure now from the landlord's insurance, knowing that the tenant's insurance. Now, Max, I don't know, like, it just always, I think it's like one of those little theories. If a tenant has their tenant insurance and they provide us with a copy, would our insurance, if we provide that copy of our tenant insurance to our insurance, do we get like cheaper insurance? Just
I wouldn't say there's a discount for that type of thing. That's a great question, though, and a good ask.
Maybe we can do it though. Maybe we can change that, like advocate through the insurance industry to make that something. Maybe.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. Another one we always get asked, and I wish we could change it, is, can you notify me if the insurance was to lapse? Due to Privacy Act, we can't notify you, unfortunately, right? But I mean, this is why you should do monthly checks with your clients, both on the property, right, and with the client, to ensure that the tenant insurance is still in place every month. I know that sounds like a lot of extra work, but it's the what ifs in life that always get you, right? So I shoulda, woulda.
I like that though. That's a good idea. You should try and advocate for that. For if the tenant has tenant insurance and they show it to us, can they save a little bit of money? Because then it really solidifies with us that we know, okay, if something does happen and we need to subrogate against the tenant, we know there's a pool of money that the insurance company can go after. Just like the thing you just showed us with the tenant leaving the water on.
Yeah, true enough.
And that is the key, right? I think it's just about us kind of like doing our due diligence, and I'm guilty of, like, I check it. Do I ask for a copy? No. And I think it's important to have a copy for situations like this, especially through the wintertime and they're taking off on their vacations. And landlords, this is where we always do like our inspections. This is very important, especially with Bill 10. We have to be very on top of our inspections. This is why, I brought in the Canadian Tenant Services for the inspections, because we know with Bill 10, it's very important. Wintertime, even better. This is something where you need to make sure, because everyone thinks that it's going to be warm enough that the pipes are not going to freeze. Well, obviously,
yeah,
we got Elsa. We got Elsa going on there. We're not into that. You see the damage that's caused. So we want to make sure that you're well protected, the whole tenant insurance, as well as doing your inspection on the tenant. Now, I have a friend that's going through this situation, been back and forth for 2 years. What are the most common liability risks you see? Things like slip and falls, water damage between the units, or maintenance issues. I probably talk about more of the slip and falls. Like, I know with our landlords, we're like, hey, let's get cameras on the property, making sure that you have salt available to your tenants, even when you're not salting the property yourself, and making sure that you have your information to your tenants to say if there is any snow or ice removal that it needs addressing when I'm not here, like, please inform me, and make it very clear through the documentation that you're very open to this. Like, is there other type of advice that you can give our landlords when it comes down to like slip and falls?
When it comes down to slip and falls, yeah, like you just said, like, especially when there's ice, make sure it's fully cleared away, because one thing people don't realize is, especially when economies are in recessions, the biggest claims that insurance companies are dealing with are slip and fall, because no one's making money, no one's got jobs, nothing. I'm gonna go down here, I'm gonna slip and fall, and I'm gonna win $40,000 in a quick lawsuit, and I'm good for the next year. So yeah, I would highly suggest. Snow is a big one. The ice is a big one, because it's not even just the tenant too, right? It literally, all it takes is the mailman walking up onto your property line, dropping off that mail, slipping on ice, breaking his back. Guess what? This whole time you're worried about the tenant suing you. Now the mailman's suing.
Yeah. And I would also say, a lot of, like you had pointed out earlier, Kayla, you ask your tenant to maybe do the shoveling, right, as part of an agreement of sorts. And I think a lot of people do that, and that's a huge mistake, because
it's so bad.
You put it on them, it doesn't happen. You're still the one getting sued, not the tenant, right? So, and I know whether it's cutting grass or shoveling or that kind of thing. Don't put it on your tenant, right?
Yeah,
you have to be responsible.
It's like our out-of-town landlords, and they think by just having the separate agreement outside of your lease and money being exchanged, now we have to get like, do they have WSIB? Like, these are all these things that you have to kind of consider when we're
they
getting
hurt themselves.
Yeah, and now we're paying for their compensation for they're obviously their industries, but now they couldn't go to work, and now we got to pay like their set. Like, it gets complicated, and it sucks that it's gone to this point. But that's why it's not easy being in this industry. And a lot of people think it is, just for the simple fact of, oh, you're getting money. I'm like, we have to pay. We got to pay for insurance. We have to pay for maintenance. We have to pay for snow shoveling and everything like that. So I'm preaching to the preachers here. But when down to vacancy. So what changes from an insurance perspective when a unit is vacant, and what point does coverage shift or become limited? Because I know when we're dealing with vacancies, I know our cities have done vacancy taxes, which shame on them. And I literally would say, vote out any counselor who introduced that type of bylaw within your city. What do you guys think?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. People don't actually know the details into a vacancy unit, because there's a lot that actually goes into it. One, you got to let us know when it's going to be 5 consecutive days, because after 5 consecutive days, you lose glass breakage, you lose vandalism, you lose all that type of coverage right after 5 days. And then after that, for 30 days, technically you can go 30 days on a policy without having what we call a vacancy permit on your home. We don't really like to do that, but it's something that technically we have to offer as well. But anything over 30 days, you gotta 100% let us know, because you need a vacancy permit put on the policy. Now, you're gonna pay for it. It's not cheap, and the reason why it's not cheap is because no one's there. And what you just showed there with that pipe can do that if no one's there. And who's going to know? Because it could go, someone comes 2 weeks later, how long's that water been running for? Right now it's seeped all the way down to the basement from the top floor. It's terrible. But yeah, within 5 days, you already lose breakage and vandalism. And after 30 days, you need a permit or we're just not going to cover you.
Right.
Well, now is that going to be like a cooperator thing, or is that like an all pretty much across the board type of fine print that we should be looking at?
Yeah, that's pretty much across the board. For sure with us, though, it's the 5 days and the 30 days, but 100%, any insurance company it's going to be the 30-day rule for sure.
So now we get,
and I'll say that when you were saying, whether it's cooperators, whether it's everybody, I'd say all insurance companies kind of provide the same coverage. It's who you're speaking to, right? And if they're providing you the right features within your policy, right? So coverages are standard, right? Features are standard, but you got to make sure the person that you're talking to understands your situation and is able to give you the right advice.
Damn. I think you just taught me a few things, fellas.
Yes.
We're here for it.
That's a tough one too. I got to tell you, Jacob, it's hard to teach her anything. So
oh my God.
she knows everything.
Thanks.
I've been out with her at these events, man. She's a rock star. So
especially if there's alcohol involved. Anyway, so next question. How do you handle with the subletting and unauthorized occupants impacting coverage? So we're talking like a tenant that we rented to, they started renting it out like a rooming house. They're bringing in random people, they're kicking them out, they're bringing them back in again. Like, are the landlords at risk here with having their tenants doing that? And if so, like, can the insurance company provide, like, obviously that clause to the landlord in which they can take it to the landlord and tenant board and say, the tenant's now impacting my reasonable enjoyment and obligations to the rental property?
Right. That's a good question. I can speak on our behalf. I can't.
All my questions are good. Like,
they are.
Like this show.
That is a good question. No, that's a good one though. So one thing I would say is if you do have, a tenant that's bringing people in and out, first of all, might be time to change tenants. Just saying. Besides that though, if it's like something that's like very properly done, where it's like, hey, I'm in for a 1-year lease, I'm leaving after 6 months, I'm subletting out for the next 6 months to someone else, that person needs to have tenant insurance. It always just comes down to the insurance and having tenant insurance. As long as one, you tell us that this is what's happening at your property. And then you also confirm that whoever they're subletting to that's coming in has tenant insurance. You're fine. Just all the insurance is put in place and you'll be fine.
Okay.
Right.
So it's not like if as long as the tenants that they're bringing in, they all have to have tenant insurance? All people?
Everyone needs to have tenant insurance.
Okay. And if they don't provide it, then we might have an opportunity to potentially do an N5. This is where we got to get Rob. We're going to be on Kevin Breitner's podcast on the 3rd with Rob DeLisi. So don't worry, we'll get the information from you and how that was.
He must be a lawyer.
Oh yeah, definitely a paralegal, entrenched into the landlord and tenant board, helping out our members today. I called them up and they're like, "Hey, just left a message," and I called them. I'm like, VIP, can you please help him? So shout out to them. Okay. Tenant insurance. So when it comes down for tenant insurance, and what kind of coverage should tenants be looking for within their tenant insurance? Like, is it like same thing like the landlords, like you got to look into the policies, or is it like a flat out, you just got tenant insurance and we're just covering your content?
That's a good question, because not a lot of tenants actually know what they're getting. They say, "Oh my goodness, it's $20, $25 per month. That's awesome. I thought it was gonna be more expensive. I'll take 2." But when it comes down to tenant insurance, it's very basic. I'll say that. Like, you can obviously add the things like the special limit, all that stuff, cover my fur coats and all that fun stuff. But it's very, very, very basic. It's literally just your own personal contents, because you got to protect that. Landlord's not protecting that. That's all on you. It's going to be your contents. It's going to be a little bit of water coverage that's going to match your contents coverage as well, because if it gets damaged by water, well, we need to make sure that it's insured peril and protected through water coverage. And then it's also going to be loss of use of dwelling, which is one that people don't really think about. And it's a big piece. So for example, I'm just going to use figurative numbers here. Let's say you have $20,000 in contents. Okay, so your stuff's good for $20,000. That might come with $8,000 in loss of use, because if that place burns down, where are you going, you just lost where you're living. Now you got to go live somewhere else. You, as a tenant, you also have that coverage where you can use that money to go rent somewhere else for the time being.
Okay. So if you had a situation where the landlord is trying to, like, say that there's water damage, there was a fire, or there was like some serious like asbestos or something that resulted in the landlord having to evict a tenant for renovations to complete the necessary repairs, would the tenant insurance cover their would the tenant insurance cover their short-term
rent at a
accommodation?
new place?
Yeah. It would?
Yeah, but it's specific. It specifically has to be for an insured peril. Like the landlord himself has to be having a claim.
Oh, so he's got to go through his insurance in order to have that covered for the tenants to be able to cover that through their insurance.
Yeah, not
Yes,
on a renovation.
there needs to be.
Basically, you're asking if there's a renovation, right?
Yeah,
in a sense, and that's not something you would call your insurance company about. But it's also not an insured peril, so we wouldn't cover it, right?
What if there was like a situation where we have aging infrastructure within the property and all the water pipes from the bathroom and the kitchen and all that's now crumbling? We're seeing a lot of leaks, but now we have to replace all the water pipes and sewage pipes potentially within the property. Would that count? Like, no? Am I like fishing?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing, right, Jacob? You're sort of, again, it's not a claim. These are issues with the property itself. If something came of that and there was a claim involved, then we would look at that, and possibly that coverage would pay for, for the rent or the expense of the tenant having to live somewhere else. But again, as Jacob alluded to earlier, it has to be an insured peril. It has to be something that your coverage covers, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Yeah, and the best place to find that is when you get your policy documents at the back with the little tiny letters and the writing that you never read. If you look in there, maybe you'll find something that says, hey, right here, you said you'd cover me for this if I leave my house because of this thing that happened at the place I was at. I want to get paid out and go live somewhere else for the time being. But it's always those little letters at the back of the policies that no one ever reads.
Well, we need to start getting those little back of the policy no one reads, and we want to start doing them as like an update on our social media so we can keep educating. So that way you guys can help our members out. Obviously, on Ontario Landlord Watch members group, you guys have something that you think that landlords are ignoring, please come into the group and tell us what we should be paying attention to, because it's more important than ever for us to start learning about the details of this. I love the fact the whole insurance thing and the renovations, and we might be on to something bigger. It's always about learning about what's happening on insurance and knowing that municipalities are introducing a renovation license towards the landlords, and tenants are crying that the landlords should be paying for their accommodations to go somewhere temporarily. And I think it's just about now strengthening tenant insurance for tenants so that it's not on the backs of the hardworking landlords who are just trying to scrape by in this troubling time of real estate. Now, one more question before you guys head out, because I know I got you for about 30 minutes, and then we have an amazing, powerful landlord that I can't wait to have her on. I've been communicating with her, and I want to share that story with you as well. Fire and smoke risk. I know I literally just had CTV News reach out to me wanting my input on the Cambridge program where they are going to be doing inspection on the high rises and giving education to tenants. It sucks. It went to my voicemail. I didn't get that opportunity to have my opinion shared, but I reached out to them, told them, keep me in the loop for other topics. But when it comes down to fire and smoke losses, and it obviously can be just devastating for the landlord and the tenant, what are the biggest prevention tips landlords and tenants should know when it comes down to like insurance? Like, are we talking like documentation of the smoke detectors and the carbon, like what would you really, if there was a fire, like what are you going to be really asking from these landlords when they are filing like this type of claim? Right. Okay. One thing I'll say. Good question.
We're not claiming. We're not. No. I'm changing it up. We're not claimed. We can't tell you exactly how the claims process is going to work and what they're going to ask for when they investigate. Because at the end of the day, when you make a claim, it's always going to be investigated because it's an insurance company, right? If they're going to pay out, they want to make sure that, based on the contract that you guys have taken together, that they're paying out based on what they promised you. The advice I would give is always check the fire extinguishers. Well, first of all, if you're a landlord and you got tenants in there, definitely have a fire extinguisher in that kitchen. I would 100% go and check the batteries. If not every 6 months, at least a year, check the batteries in the CO detector, check it in the smoke detector. If it's also one big thing too that people don't realize is even in a basement, people need to be able to get out, right? So if you have a door down there, if someone was in the basement and you got, boxes all in front of that door, how's that person getting out, right? There's a fire behind them. They're running. They're trying to move boxes, trying to get out because there's a fire. And now you've covered a fire exit. It's crazy. I would say make sure that every door, every window is accessible. Check the batteries and make sure the fire extinguisher is working and up to date.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is like we are talking winter time. This is the perfect opportunity you guys are not doing outside work. You guys got to do your inspections. It sucks that you want to have to give the 24-hour written notice, come in and do these type of inspections, document. We have CTI, so the Canadian Tenant Services, in which you can get them as a third party coming in to do these type of inspections for you. And I think it's key now more than ever with Bill 10. And I tell our landlords all the time, it's better safe than sorry. A lot of people think, what's the fire code? Do I have to give them a fire extinguisher? I'm like, just give it to them. Like, honestly,
Literally.
Just I don't even care if it's code or not code. If they can save my house or save my kitchen and avoid having to go through the insurance process, because it sucks. No offense, guys. We want to make that easier.
No, we agree.
It's almost like, and now Max, I know that we talked about like estate planning, and I do have Sadif. She's in the background. I have her in the waiting room, and she's being so patient. I love you. So hold up. But the whole estate's planning, like we talked about that at one of the events. Just give us like a 2 minute, or 1 minute, kind of captivate, why we should be paying attention to that part of our lives, even though we're still kind of kicking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're doing investments, in homes and apartments and so on, a lot of times people want to leave that as a legacy for their children. And when you want to do that, capital gains is going to come into play, right? And capital gains is, below $250,000 is 50%, above $250,000 is 66.7%, right? So as a quick example, if you had $100,000 gain, you times that by 50%, right? And then that works out to $50,000. And then you times that by their marginal tax rate at 30%, that's $15,000 that they would pay on capital gains. Okay. So that's just a quick example. But this is where insurance can come into play. You get an insurance policy. If you were to pass away, obviously the properties get passed to their children. A lot of times people have to sell those properties because they can't afford the tax implications that come with it. So this is where the insurance policy, when you pass, is used specifically to pay all those taxes, right? Woo! And then even if you have a permanent insurance policy with a cash surrender value, that even allows you money to accumulate on the side, right? Which they can actually borrow on, right? From the bank or borrow the money themselves to be able to use for updates on the property itself, right? So, or whatever they want to use it for. But the point is that insurance can be used to, thwart
offset the government's policy.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's an easy fix if you're, go ahead, Jacob.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add on to that because Max and I, we literally do the same thing. We deal with landlords all the time when we're talking about estate planning and passing it down. One strategy that we have used a lot with landlords specifically, especially when they have multiple units, is also you can only raise your rent by so much every year, right? By the couple percentage points that you're allowed to. But one thing that we've noticed is that if you're pulling in an extra $25 per door and you have 100 doors, that's going to be like $2,500 per month. Why not use $25 per door and get one of these permanent insurance policies? Now you have technically the tenant paying for this policy that you're going to use to pass down all the assets down to the children. And I love that Max brought up with the cash value and the permanent insurance. We love to call that infinite banking because you have access to that cash that's built up, and the loan rates on those is very, very, very small. It's way better than a line of credit. And we get people all the time that come to us and say, hey, I was going to buy a new car. It's $70,000 and they want to charge me 8% interest. I know I have $80,000 in my cash account, my life insurance policy. What's the interest rate on that? Oh, it's 3.1%. I'm going to borrow the money from myself and pay myself like a bank instead of taking the 8% loan. So there's so many strategies you can do when it comes to estate planning with life insurance. And it's something that landlords, I'll be honest, don't really think about until it comes to a point where they're like, oh, I actually have to pass this down to my kids. Oh, my life insurance is now $1,000 per month. That's okay. It could have been $200 if I did it when I first got my properties. Maybe I should have done this sooner.
I got
Yeah.
Sean.
But, you know, insurance is only beneficial if you qualify. So don't wait until you're too old or sick or you've incurred something, right? Because then you're not going to qualify the insurance. Think about it early. Think about it when you're healthy. Think about it when you're young. Go ahead, Kayla.
Damn. You know, I just talked to Sean quickly regarding a will because my husband had a stroke in August.
Yeah, we know,
so that was like, okay, maybe I need a will now. This is like kind of depressing, but I'm going to be having to do it. This is about thinking 10 steps ahead. And I think we have to start pivoting. And I know a lot of landlords, like there's a lot of noise out on the web, and we want to make sure that we're, you know, getting people to bring a face. And thank you, Max and Jacob, for coming on. And you definitely taught me a few things. And I love your energy, and I love the personal touch that you all brought, and my patience of being delayed getting on this live. If you guys can kindly put where people can connect with you in the comments right now before you guys take off.
Sure.
This is going to be important. So if you are interested, guys, in the residential insurance, even the estate planning of what Max and Jacob were talking about, and tenant insurance, you know, if you can put the links to tenant insurance as well, because obviously our tenants may not know where to get tenant insurance. So if we can help guide them where they can get tenant insurance, that's going to be key as well. So definitely just put it in the chat there. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time. And I'm sure we're going to have you on again and continue to keep giving me as much information about the insurance industry as possible, because that's my weakness. It's definitely my weakness. So make sure that you guys are able to keep us in the loop of what's happening, what's changing, because it's government involved as well, right? So just thank you so much for both of you for joining me.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, no, thank you. This has been
do it anytime.
Pleasure.
Thank you for being on Kayla Unfiltered, and we will certainly be talking on the phone probably tomorrow. So stay tuned, guys. We're gonna bring our landlord on, and we're gonna be able to have another conversation. But I do want to, you guys can be in the back room, or you can can go on to our Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel to watch the rest of the show.
100%. I'll be there.
Go to the back room. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so thank you so much for the cooperators for being a sponsor to Ontario Landlords Watch, helping me advocate, teaching me a whole bunch about how we can advocate for changes in the insurance to better protect the landlords and better protect the tenants. I am going to introduce you now to a landlord, someone who I have been communicating with for some time back and forth. I have taken part in being at the hearing with her tenant. And I just know that she's a landlord who was a short-term. She went to long-term, and there was a lot of learning curves that she's learned through that. So Sadif, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share your story with our community. I think it's very, very important that we have landlords like yourself coming on and not really talking about the tenant per se. We know how tenants like to take things out of context, but this is about your learning experience through the Landlord and Tenant Board, through the Residential and Tenancy Act, and the type of behavior that we really didn't expect, so to speak. So thank you.
Thanks, Kayla. I'm not sure what's going on with my...
You might be a little frozen. If you want, you can get out and come back in again.
I tried a few times. I can do that. Give me a second. I'll do it again.
Yeah, we're seeing you, we're hearing you, so that's a good thing.
Oh God, I don't know what's going on. Just give me a second. I'll be back again.
Yeah, just completely log out and then come back in, and I'll let you in through the door. This is the fun part of live, guys. You should see what it was like in the beginning. So I'll give you like I'll remove you, just completely get out. There she goes. She's good, guys. I'll keep you entertained. I've been talking for 15 years advocating for this housing industry. So just to give you guys a little bit of an update, we're bringing the landlords associations together. We're hoping to have that meeting happening on February 11th, where we are going to be discussing our next plans to having a conversation with the provincial government. And hopefully we're going to have Sadiq with us at that meeting as well. So this is why I thought it was a very important day to have her on, so that she can share her experience. Thank you so much. You seem beat. You seem definitely, I've been following you. How are you feeling? Like, first and foremost, how are you feeling?
I mean, I'm okay. It was just a long battle. Not gonna lie. It drained the hell out of me, but it's the part of being a landlord, I guess.
So what we're going to have here, guys, is that we have her voice very clear, not stuttering, but there is a delay in the camera. Might be just the Wi-Fi where she is. So don't worry. It's always about your voice. It's about bringing your voice to the community. So don't worry about the imaging going on here.
I can turn off my image.
No, we got to still see your face. You're a human. It's totally fine as long as you're able to talk.
Okay.
So now through you being a landlord, give us a little bit of why you got into being a landlord in Ontario, period.
I wasn't supposed to be a landlord. I'm a homeowner and I do Airbnb as part of my income, and it was a cash flow. And I think I became a landlord through that process because it's just how broken it is.
Okay, so it's more like the transitioning from like the short term going into long term that kind of caught you.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you first started to know that your tenant stopped paying rent, like what was your knowledge to how to deal with that? Like, were you struggling to understand what we had to do through the Residential and Tenancy Act and Landlord and Tenant Board?
I didn't know how I have to pursue that because I wasn't even sure if I'm protected under RTA or not. So there wasn't a clear line indicating that what does it differentiate between short-term stays and long-term tenancy? And I had no idea about it. Small landlords like me, there's not a clear line that you can just rely on and go from there. So I had to hire a lawyer and file applications on top of applications and learn the process through that. It was some sort of I'd say accidental tenancy, and I got into that and I had to learn the process in the hard way.
And how long did it take you from start to finish? How long did it technically take for your justice to be heard?
I'd say from the beginning that I started going through the system, it was from early March 2025 up to January 2026.
And as of today's date, like what is the total amount owing for the rental arrears?
$45,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your experience going with the Landlord and Tenant Board, and was there any delays? Was there any adjournments that were happening through the case?
I mean, the hardest part of this process was how easy it could be manipulated, and every delay benefited like the other party. Every minor technical error that it was outside of my control, it seemed like it punished me. And it was just, there was no point in the system that seriously accounted for my rights, or I'd say prejudice to all the small landlords or landlords that are facing something that you see the other party manipulating the system. And adjournments, delaying, abusing the process, application on top of application that could delay your application. I had to face that, and it wasn't easy to watch, and it was outside of my control because the communication part of it was very hard.
And that's where it's like we're working with like your application for non-payment of rent, or whether the act applies. And then we also had the fact that the tenant would make false claims against the landlord.
Yeah.
And then they wanted all of it to come together in one hearing.
Well, I had to do a hearing for whether the RTA applies or not, Residential Tenancy Act. That took months to figure out whether it applies or not, and it wasn't. I had to wait for the educator to make a ruling on that, and then realize, oh, okay, there are tenants based on this and that, and still to date, I don't even understand how I got to that point, but and then after that, I had to go through the process of, now that there are tenants and now they're not paying, what should I do?
Mm-hmm. And from your, like, if you had an elected official watching your video right now, listening to your words, what's one change that you would want our elected official to do? I know there's a bunch, and
There's a lot.
And this is where I struggle. It's like we have probably 20 really hard changes that need, and we have to narrow it down to 5, right? And that's because I know that I want to be able to give them something that's going to impact, the protection of landlords, but also make sure that tenants are not being abused by it as well, because we do have our good tenants out there.
Yeah, I mean, the framework exists to protect tenants from real abuse. And I get you. I totally understand that. And I'm on that. But what's broken is the enforcement, the delays, and abuse of the process. The professional tenants and all of that needs to be recognized. And I think there has to be a stop to it. And it's not that hard to see through, people. It's actually not that.
I watched it. I've like, you can't say nothing, and I don't want you to say anything regarding it. I watched that hearing.
The
longest hearing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not just talking about me, like seeing through someone who's abusing the system. It's not that hard. And the fact that there's so much leeway to go through that, it's for these individuals, there has to be a stop to it, and that stop needs to come from another authority, or the law needs to change. And then getting into the non-payment of rent, like why a small landlord has to suffer when another person is not able to pay, or they have financial problem. I understand that, but at the same time, there's a mortgage that we have to pay, and the bank is not going to come to you and say, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it, I'll cover you for now until you figure it out.
No, you're right. They don't. But what we also have to, we've said it time and time again, there's rent relief banks out there for tenants. So why are you making small landlords like yourself a social agency without proper compensation, when there is relief for tenants, but there's no relief for the landlords?
Yeah, there is so little consequences for tenants if they damage the property, or they stop paying, or ignore the orders over and over and over again. There is not much of that consequence. But when it comes to the landlord, oh God, you're expected to comply immediately or face penalties. Accountability has to run.
It's here's your order. This is how much you have to pay the tenant. If you don't pay the tenant on this time, you're going to have the interest rates accumulating. You have the landlord's good credit to go after. You have their location, because landlords don't move as often as tenants move. So they're able to serve, they're able to do the garnishment of wages a lot easier. And this is something that I've been advocating for, that I think with landlords, it's a struggle to find out where the tenant's relocated, or where their job is, or their banking institution. So it comes down to allowing, what I would propose is that we allow landlords to serve tenants within 31 days, because you're supposed to have 30 days and you're supposed to update Service Ontario with your new address. So we're hoping that, advocating for our landlords to serve their tenants through Service Ontario in a way to have proper measures put in place and consequences for that.
Wouldn't it also make sense to enforce all the individuals, including the landlords or the tenants, to provide proper IDs to the LTV.
Yes.
So that has to be one of the the simplest rule that landlord tenant board should have.
And I love that idea. I love that idea. And I think it's going to be part of my advocacy going forward, because deep down, like when you create these orders and everyone's uploading these orders like they mean something, there's so many people that have very much the common names. And it's important to identify the person who is leaving a debt and doing damages and causing the type of income of damage. We need to track them, not just on an order. We need to have their full name, and we do need to have their birth dates. That's why I keep telling people, like, you got to get that information right from the beginning of the tenancy. And if you don't, then we do need to get the landlord and tenant board now accepting that information before the tenants are filing, in order to identify that they are speaking with the exact tenant that could be there, as well as holding them accountable. Because I know with Bill 60, they are trying to get that information more public of the orders to the public regarding the tenants. So I like that idea about the landlord and tenant board asking for the tenant's ID. And I think it's very important.
If they do that, it could prevent a lot of cases coming in from the beginning, from the get-go. It could help the system not to be delayed to this extent, or, just everything move fast. And when you're like, I don't know what's getting protected here other than landlords or tenants not wanting to provide their exact name and birth date, so that causes more defraud in the system. So if from the get-go that's provided, then a lot of people going to just behave accordingly.
Right now the system is enabling bad behavior, and they know it. That's why the landlords are leaving Ontario. This is why they're going into Alberta. They're going into Mexico. Like, they know that there is an influx of people vacating this place because it doesn't work. It's not a investor friendly province. It's something that brings more high risk. Like, why would you invest in a business that is considered high risk? Similar like to a restaurant, right? So we do need to make these necessary changes. I love that Bill 60 is something that I've never seen before within my 15 years of advocating. I've never seen something more pro landlord than I've ever had. But this is now a field day for these tenant unions who are trying to take advantage of it. And the tenant unions are now working even harder, and they're approaching their municipalities trying to get bylaws put in place that the province wouldn't, such as the renoviction bylaw that is now causing landlords to pay for a fee. Then they actually are trying to incorporate that we have to pay for their accommodations elsewhere in order to do the necessary repairs. And a lot of these elected officials are doing it because it looks good in the newspaper, thinking that they're doing something for the tenants. It's appeasing to the tenant unions because they're flashing that they have 190,000 members. Meanwhile, it's all their online campaigns. Like, this is what Doug Ford's doing. If you want to stop this, be a part of our association, and people just log in with their name and email address. Landlords got to get organized. And I literally watched this renoviction bylaw with the city of Waterloo, Sadif, and the councilor's like, I don't see landlords here, so it's obviously not an issue. And I'm like, one, we didn't get the memo. Number two, do we really want to sit there with all of those tenant union representatives? And here we're just like this single little landlord. So I am working on making sure that we're collaborating together to show our strength of housing providers in Ontario, because I know our elected officials need to hear these stories, and they need to hear the stories that come from people like you. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that can't share their story. It's either because of their job, or it's because they work for the public sector, or they just don't want their family members to kind of know what they're dealing with. And we need more and more people like yourself coming and sharing like what has happened, because this is not like you being that bad landlord and this is why the tenant acted this way. This is a professional landlord who knew the loopholes and what to say and what sections of the RTA to play for their hearing to drag this hearing out as long as possible. That's why it's important for us to kind of keep reminding people about reporting, like getting the person's information, their birth date, and their phone number, or their full name for us to report that to front lobby. It's so important for us to get ourselves reporting these people to a certified, approved by the Privacy Commissioner of Canada consumer reporting agency like Front Lobby, so that we can get it on these people's credits. And as of today, we now have the option of, when you report it to Front Lobby, you're also sharing it to Equifax, Landlord Credit Bureau, and now TransUnion. And it sucks that we get this one individual, and we always say, like, this guy that, that you're dealing with, we now have to go through that step, but you also now have to track him. Now I don't know if we want to talk about that just because it's an ongoing situation, but there is a lot of trouble going with the garnishment and the lack of education that some of the banking institutions are dealing with. But I do want to kind of, if you had the landlord and tenant board and the way that, like, what was your opinion on the adjudicator that handled your case?
Oof.
Like, I know we talk about some adjudicators are very
I stay quiet on this. I'll
You can plead the fifth. You can plead the fifth. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I'll just stay quiet on this. Don't ask me about the adjudicator on my case, who sees himself on my case. I'd rather just keep out.
Yeah, no worries.
I'd say it's.
I'm glad that you said that, just because, like, this kind of shows, like, how the rules, like, you can't even speak freely, right? And unfortunately, like, I get that. I totally get it, because you don't know how it's going to backlash, if it's going to come back to landlord tenant board ever again. But
I mean, I'd say it's public records. Whoever wants to, who likes to see what's going on, they can just go at it.
I will find this public record, and I will share this public record. No one else. I'm just going to do it because I feel it's important to highlight the good tenants and good landlords, and bad landlords and bad tenants. We have a member here. He just posted, finally won after 2-year fight. We will never be landlords in Ontario again. Finally free.
I'm with you, buddy.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the message. This is the message that we want to get to our elected officials.
Loud and clear. Are you sure you ever want to buy a house and be a landlord? Just think twice in Ontario. And if you want to do that, you better just educate yourself on RTA or hire a lawyer before doing anything.
Hire a lawyer. I think you need to become a lawyer in order to
hire a lawyer, have a paralegal, have all the people around you.
Yeah. And this is why, like, I started Ontario Landlords Watch. It was just about water billing, being responsible for our tenants' delinquent utility bills. And that was coming back with messages that I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I never had a problem. So I never knew what our landlords were dealing with in there. And I'm like, these people need help, and this is why I made Ontario Landlords Watch members, so that we can have people there. We can hear what they're going through, identify what the challenges are within the Residential and Tenancy Act and Landlord and Tenant Board. And we've been screaming at the top of our lungs, networking with different, we have Parm Gill. He was the associate to the Minister of Housing. We had Christine Hogarth, who was also the associate. We had a lot of elected officials that we had roundtable discussions with, consultations. Now we have Rob Flack, who is the Minister of Housing. We have his associate, which is Grayson Smith. Doug Downey's obviously the Attorney General. We also have his associate, which is Michael Tabolo, which we had conversations with him. And now I'm looking at trying to get a roundtable discussion, not only with all of those people together, and I think that's what is important, but we need, like, the Minister of Finance. We need the Minister of Social Services. Like, we need to have, like, a good roundtable discussion with stakeholders, the small mom and pop landlords who are feeling that they are, like, dealing with a 2-year fight for a simple dispute with a tenant, and dragging them through the mud. And now you just lost a housing provider, because it takes you a thick skin. It takes a very thick skin to be a landlord here in Ontario. And when you have landlords like yourself telling your story, when you have this gentleman or woman or whoever they are on here talking about feeling free, like, what is that going to do to any potential investors outside of Ontario or outside of the country wanting to come in and invest into this province? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
That means that your skin became thin and you're just running away. That's what's happening. And then everybody's just after a thick skin, and after going through the battle for 2 years, I can't imagine what these people went through, and I've been through that, and it's painful.
We've had shows on about Section 56, people who, bought a property from a developer, and then they severed it with a tenant in the property. And now, because of Section 56 of the RTA, they can never apply to move into the rental unit for personal use. This thing that the RTA has been completely outdated. We have the landlord and tenant board is a machine in itself. A lot of taxpayer money is going to feed the landlord and tenant board. It could be easily simplified so that we don't have to. And then deep down, we also have to look at as taxpayers and how much money taxpayers are spending on homelessness in our community, because you've created a system that enables bad behavior. And this is where we also look at the recent post regarding government grants given to tenant advocacies. And they are now spending almost 14,000 and going to Egypt. And that's only a touch of it. Like, we talk about the Sunshine List, we talk about Ottawa Community Housing and how much money executive directors are getting there. Like, we're going down a very deep rabbit hole, I believe.
Yeah.
Into how housing has been managed, and that understanding that the landlords were a really good partner. And what's happening is we're putting pressure on the taxpayers now to compensate for the landlords leaving this industry.
Yeah. Is
and
that
that's
rabbit hole getting deeper and deeper, or it looks like it's getting deeper? I don't know how.
Oh, it's getting it's getting worse, because we see what the province has done, but
Yes.
we now have to look at what's happening at the municipal level, and how do you fight each municipal government and their craziness, and not knowing, and their council meetings are so long and they're drawn out and they're not getting to the topics, and they don't care what stats are being brought to them to exercise that. No, we don't need to spend annual fee of $450,000 to have a renovation bylaw that is happening in order to protect tenants from bad faith landlords, when the system is already built. Like, tenants can take a landlord back to the landlord and tenant board up to 2 years. We can be fined up to $100,000 as an individual, up to $500,000 as a corporation. So please tell me why our municipalities feel the need to get out of their lane and get into the provincial lane. But most importantly, you're spending taxpayers' dollars on duplication of services. And it's a 2026, October 2026. There's a municipal election. I want everyone to do whatever you can to investigate who your current councillors are. Try to figure out from your communities, there's community groups all over the place, and find out who these people are and what they voted for. And if you do have someone that is going to be a good candidate, I want you to support them. And I think we have to support the Conservatives for what they've done with Bill 60. I know it takes a lot of time. They have a lot of issues that they're trying to fix and address. And it sucks that it's taken this long to get something like Bill 60. We hope that more is on the way. But in order to get more on the way, we also have to do our part on Bill 60. And I think everyone has to take a look at what's happening with the NDP, what's happening with CUPE, the tenant unions. There's a correlation between them. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
It's weird how we're seeing a union representing municipal workers. They're now supporting the NDP. The NDP are supporting the unions, and the union is now supporting the tenant associations. And now they always have funding more so than our landlords association. And it's important for our landlords to support your local landlords association as well, and take part in their meetings, because the education is going to be key.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting to see a lot of things that I never would have thought that I'm gonna get into. Bill 60 and all of municipal housing and all of this are fairly new, and also I had to dig so deep to understand what's going on. It's not easy to be a small landlord and live in Ontario and think that, oh, you made actually a good investment. There's always a big question back of your head. Was that a good investment or not? Because there's always a fear that's haunting you every day that something can go wrong.
And it's almost like being almost like extra paranoid, you know, when you have a
Yeah.
tenant that's been there for so long, you've put that trust in the fact that they are your good tenants, but they
Yeah.
know that with the
But they
rules
know
that
the law now and the media and everything. And
they have
today anybody can claim
ChatGPT.
tenancy. Today I can come to your house. 2 days I stay, or probably, and I can claim tenancy. You can face months of delay and and I can remain in the position while paying nothing. That helps no one, you know, and not even like legitimate tenants, and actively rewards bad faith conduct. And I don't. That's why I'm like, it has to be something that you can easily see through people, and there has to be a stop to that. Going through all these circles, and then at the end of the day you come back to the beginning and there is no productive outcome. Like, what are we doing in this city?
It's putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, and they're just wanting to, I think, look at landlords as the scapegoat for them not doing their job properly.
Yeah.
Um, and at the same time, like if you look at if they actually were able to cough up the money and pay for the tenant, but this is not about a tenant not having the money. It's about the people who can't pay or the people that won't pay. And
Yeah.
these are individuals that are growing that won't pay.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important. And it sucks that the landlords feel so fearful. This is why we're always encouraging you to document every bit of interaction. Don't get too friendly. I know it's a
Yeah.
business. Like, and it's not even like you've done anything wrong. Like I've watched this whole thing unravel, and this is a part where the system failed you.
Yeah. You should never, after what I learned, you should never assume common sense, and you actually need to document every single little thing. Even when you document it, there's always questions.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we're putting the information out there regarding like obviously $45,000 in the arrears, but we also talk about how potentially 30,000 pages of evidence that were uploaded in order to, make this a long drawn out case so that, it gets brought into another day. Then you're waiting for the order, then you're waiting for the sheriff, and the tenants are using ChatGPT to upload different type of evidence for the adjudicator to be fully overwhelmed. What kind of process would you like to see as a change in order to streamline an adjudicator from having to deal with that? Like, should it be certain documentation, like limits, like, because obviously they're not going to be able to read it all.
Of course, I mean, I'd say certain amount of pages or uploads. However, even those rulings are set out and the order is given out, there's still forgiveness for the individuals again abusing the process. So in my case, I didn't understand then what was that order for if it's not getting respected. So if you're getting ordered to present it at this time, this is the deadline, and you cannot exhaust the portal, then stop doing that. And you otherwise not gonna look at your cases, not gonna look at the tenant application, not gonna look at the landlord application if you're not following my order specifically written down. But there is always a forgiveness for the other party, regardless of what time they submit, what do they do, or if they are not following the law. But on the other side, from my case, I saw if there's a little minor technical issue or minor mistake, God, you're punished. You're punished, and you have to wait for months.
And I've watched this hearing. I'm watching it. I believe it was $1.20 of a
$1.42, yeah.
$1.42.
Yeah.
$1.42 almost caused an application that's been waiting and drawn out for such a long time. Like, and they know that
caused for an N4 to get invalidated, but
on 45,000, 43, 45,000 dollars, like that is that, and they know they made changes so that minor errors with both parties there can establish what was paid, what was charged. This is the simple time frame, and I think right down is the education. I think it's going to be the education to these adjudicators right now and who they are and how we're selecting them. I took part in the stakeholder meeting with the landlord and tenant board. They talked about applications that was open for appointees to apply. They talk about how long it takes to pick someone, to go through the vetting process, to put them through training, and then they come onto the floor. And guess what? I don't think it's cracked out what they thought it was going to be. And now we see a lot of people resigning, right? So now we have to go through the process of hiring more adjudicators all over again. So I am, hopefully with rules and regulations changing, we need to advocate for the simple fact that I believe, and I love your opinion on this too, because and anyone who's watching, should non-payment of rent applications have to be heard automatically by an adjudicator at the landlord and tenant board when there's rent relief programs that are available to tenants? What do you think?
Are you asking me or you're asking the people?
I'm asking you. Like, should a non-payment of rent application be heard by an adjudicator, like a full-on hearing? We have a portal, the portal where the landlord updates the N4. Tenants have the opportunity to provide that they've paid or they didn't pay within a certain time frame, maybe 14 days, maybe 7 now with Bill 60. Why are we still going through a hearing? When the tenant,
I'm with you. I think there has to be a fast track binding determination for cases involving something like this, and just right off the bat, just say you're not paying. This is what I see. These are the evidences. It doesn't have to be a full-on hearing. You get the written submission, and that's it. You move forward. Going through the hearing and then hear the tenant's application, their issues. When there's still non-payment of rent, then how are they able to bring new issues in or bring any issues in?
Yeah. And I think that's what Bill 62, obviously if the tenant had to pay 50% of the amount owing, they can't bring in any of their issues unless they did it prior. And again, no matter which way you look at it, the RPA,
we're talking about professional tenants. So if that's the case, then maybe they know that they're going to start bringing it prior. 10 application, T2, T3, T64, all of it. So then it's not new anymore. Yeah. New is when you're going to the hearing, but before that, the tenant can bring like 4 applications and they can ask to get it heard with your non-payment of rent application, and you won't get a time slot that is dedicated for only non-payment of rent application, because that could have taken probably 30 minutes to 1 hour. But now that they got awarded to have their tenant application heard with the non-payment, then you need a bigger time slot. And then that means that you might get heard within the next 2 to 3 months. But isn't there something that they can scan through and see, everything is ChatGPT and lie or whatever? It doesn't even fall on there to get it heard, like together, like maybe some land, like there has to be a threshold, not $50,000, but maybe something. So then put a stop to it and say, no, this landlord needs to get heard immediately. We go, and then we move forward.
Yeah. I think it's the portal. Like, they spent so much money on this portal. Why aren't we using it to its full potential, especially with the power of AI? If you're uploading information and you can program your artificial intelligence to pinpoint out what's going to be considered like an emergency factor here and be able to utilize that as well. Like, the portal needs to be utilized a lot more. And I think that's the whole part of like pulling the number one application at the landlord and tenant board, which is non-payment of rent applications, pulling it from the board and have more of a streamlined process, just like the personal use applications.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many companies that they make those applications specifically for your industry. So then it comes inside your computer and the AI generates everything and then detects everything, and it's specifically made and built for you. So I'm not sure why they're not doing that. On top of that, why LTB? Why can't we have just not private investigators, but investigators from LTB to go and actually check on the house and see the states of the house, interview those people, interview the landlord, interview the tenant, everything that is said on the hearing, hear that, and then sit in your car and go do your own investigation as a educator, not just sit home and make the ruling. You can do that by just going and passing by the house and see what's going on.
Even for, it would save money municipal, because tenants are using the municipal bylaw of property standards. Shouldn't we have like something come from the landlord and tenant board saying, hey, like maybe we're going to put an order into the city because we want to see what's going on there, and they can order the city to come and do an inspection on the rental property first. But the tenants have so many options. Tenants have a lot of options. That's why when you see the RTA the way it is, the landlord and tenant board, the only people that are suffering is the people who are funding it. And we're funding it with $186, $201, application after application, and we're still not getting the service. Like, please tell me which type of business is out there that, you know, we're forced to pay for and we're not receiving the service that we're paying for, and it's allowed.
Yeah.
Oh, my dear. You know what? We're not done yet. I want to make sure that we're bringing your story to our elected officials at the provincial level, because this is a $45,000 debt that you've accumulated. This is someone who knew the loopholes inside and out, from using Section 83, from, you know, fearful and tracking you and watching your every move. And unfortunately, it sucks that, you know, we can't even get you to be yourself anymore because of a tenant who is harassing you. And I literally have a tenant who thinks she's calling my phone every time. And guess what? It doesn't ring anymore. But this is the intimidation factor that they not only do to like landlords, they're doing it to elected officials. And they literally had called the White House and played the White House's voicemail on my voicemail. So I don't know what the White House got. But this is the craziness that landlords have to deal with. This is the broken system that us as landlords can't just sit back and just kind of complain about it. I want to know your solutions. I want to know what you think needs to get done. I want to know what your stories are, and what you're dealing with. I want to be able to bring your voice to our community. I want to bring it to the elected officials. If something is happening in your municipal government regarding vacancy tax, landlord licensing, renovation licensing, water billing, if there's a meeting, if there's anything that's happening that we can support you, please send us a message, either Ontario Landlords Watch or olwlandlords@gmail.com. I think it's important for you to be outspoken. And as you can see through the Waterloo Council, they want to hear from landlords. Our province wants to know why our landlords are quiet as well. So please be loud, be professional about it. Don't come with the complaints that we know they know. We want to be able to get our solutions heard, and we want to do it in a way that it protects our good landlords that are good tenants. And just know that we're here to keep giving you different products and different tools in order to help us while we navigate the changes of how to advocate for this housing industry. Because deep down, they know they need us. We know they need us. It's just tenants are never going to know that they need us. So no matter which way you fight it, don't worry. We're still going to be here as a community. City, if there's any like last voice of reason to our elected officials or to our community, what would it be?
I'd say to our community, just be careful before you're walking into any sort of sales, or if you want to buy anything anymore or invest on any house anymore. I don't know. I'd say that we need help and we need change in the system. Bill 60 is the start of it.
It's a haircut.
Sorry?
It's a haircut. We have a haircut. We need more. We want a whole.
Like Bill 60 is just a start. And for me, non-payment of rent and the suffer that I endure, I'd say there's a lot of people I know of that they were in the same issue as mine, and it's very sad and draining, and it's night and day that you have to go through a battle of keeping yourself together and also holding on to the house that you have to pay the mortgage on, and probably every day getting a call from your a lender that you missed the payment, or what are you gonna do, and eventually you're gonna see your house going on for sale. This whole thing needs to change somehow. I don't know how, but whatever it's going
now, though, you're doing it right now. Your voice, your story. That's how we change this as well. Like, a lot of people think we can't, but we're too quiet. And I want to thank you for being outspoken with what you're dealing with, and keep being that person for our voice, because they need to know how it's impacted you personally, because you dealt with a lot. And I don't know how you're still standing today, to be honest.
I would say, like, whoever is a landlord and they face these kind of issues, like, come forward, and you don't have to talk about the details of your stories, but at least, like, make it clear that I'm not the only one, or the other person wasn't the only one. And there's a lot of us, and instead of not having our houses on rent anymore because we're traumatized now. I'm traumatized. Like, I'm traumatized to the point that I don't want any more liability and responsibility anymore. I don't want to be an owner. I don't want to invest in anywhere. Like, that's the experience that I had, and it wasn't easy to go through that. But I hope that the system changes, and there has to be consequences for bad faith tenants, and
Yes.
and there has to be penalties. There has to be something. You can't just walk away without no consequence from the beginning, get go, of not providing your full information and go through DLTB and provide all of those documentations that's going to delay the process and delay. Go request to review, do this, bring the motion. Like, all of these are incurring a lot of delays. And then on top of that, go appeal. And then what? And then if the order is against me, as you said, it's so easy. It's so easy to track me. It's so easy to go after me. If the order is against the other party,
yeah. You know what? This is the frustrations. This is the pain. This is the suffering of a broken system. And we do know that there is changes happening. They're not soon enough. And we're going to continue to advocate, but at the same time, it's government. Everything usually is pretty slow because we have so many layers. This is why I always encourage everyone, if you have a tenant that is taking advantage of the system, please report them to frontlobby.com. This is the only way we're going to be able to communicate with one another, by putting our information into Front Lobby. They share it with Equifax and TransUnion now as of today, and Landlord Credit Bureau. We need to start holding these tenants accountable. I'm going to put that in the link here. On the 5th, I said the 6th to the people, so I'm hoping, I just looked at the calendar. So February 5th, we're going to have a few people join us. A lot of people, actually. We're going to be talking about everything that's happening in Hamilton with a dumpster fire. We have the renovation licensing that they have going on, the landlord licensing. We also have the mayor of Hamilton trying to evict her ex-spouse without going to the landlord and tenant board herself.
I heard that.
I know, right? Like, I had 211,000 views in a very short time frame on that story. So we're finally bringing the right people who have been following this right from the get-go. And I can't wait to have all of them on. We're talking about the tiny homes that were supposed to be like 2 million and change in a short-term 3-year type of housing that was supposed to happen. And now it's ballooned to over $7 million for that as well. And we're also going to talk about welfare fraud. So buckle up for the 5th of February. We're going to probably have like a 2-hour show for this with a 10-minute break in between to bring you some really good things that are happening in Hamilton. And you want to pay attention to what's happening in Hamilton, because if it's happening in Hamilton, it's going to come to your city too. So don't fool yourself. They look at each other just like Waterloo. They're like, oh, what's going on in Kitchener? Oh, what's going on in this city? They always look at each other because, again, they can't stay out of the province's business. And hey, let the province do its job and let them do it well. And in the meantime, we have to support the Conservatives, guys, as much as we look at what's happening, what's going on in the world and what's in other parties. If we have any chance of anything, it's going to be the Conservatives. So keep following your Conservatives and what they're doing, and keep bringing your concerns to them. And if you have them the option of coming on this show, please send them the invite. And if you want to come on, please reach out to us. I want to be able to share your story. I think it's very, very important. And Sadif, thank you so much for doing what you did today and sharing your story. And we're going to still support you. We're all the way to the end. And I'm looking forward to bringing your story to the higher ups and to media's attention as well.
Thank you, Kayla.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and subscribing to our Ontario Landlords Watch YouTube channel. Until next Thursday, this is Kayla Unfiltered.